Hello and welcome back into another episode of The Hard Fowl. I'm your host, Pearson Fowler. With me, as always, back from Oxford. He survived driving through 8 hours of torrential downpour is Gamecock Central's Collyn Taylor. Collyn, was the ride as unpleasant as watching that basketball game Wednesday night?
The ride was worse.
Really?
Yeah, the ride was exponential. Well, it was weird because I rented a car, and so when I get to lovely Columbia Metropolitan Airport to go pick up said rental on Wednesday morning, they ran out of mid-sized cars.
Wow.
And so...
How do you run out of mid-sized
exactly,
cars?
right?
That's a wide range.
So I had to drive a bright red Chevy Silverado there and back.
Oh, my gosh.
So driving that through the rain, through Atlanta, through Birmingham, less than ideal. And I got to see Morgan Freeman at the game.
That's true. That's true.
There's... Lane Kiffin and Morgan Freeman were sitting next to each other at an Ole Miss basketball game. So
was red Silverado the only color they had left, or did you choose red?
They told me, they were like, you're in this specific parking spot, and I turned the corner, and there's the only car in the lot at like 7 a.m. when I picked up the car was this bright red, and like I didn't want to believe it at first, and so like I hit the lock button to like have the horn beep, and it went burp, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
No.
So I had to drive this like. I don't drive a truck. I've never really driven a truck. The most I've ever done is like driven a U-Haul through Columbia.
Right.
And so, yeah, that was an incredibly unique experience.
Yeah, I've never driven a truck. I used to drive like a mid-size SUV. It was an Isuzu Axiom, and then I recently downgraded to like not a lot smaller, like a reasonably good-sized sedan. But I couldn't imagine. I like being lowish to the ground. And,
yeah. Well, I drive I drive a Chevy Malibu, and so that's a nice little mid-sized sedan. And if I had got something similar to that, I would have been great. Good gas mileage, aerodynamic. Get through the rain.
Who's renting all these cars
in
Wednesday
Columbia
morning in the middle of February, beginning of February?
Guys, take your vacations in the spring and summer, and don't worry about cars.
I guess people were trying to get out before the cold and before the storm.
Yeah.
I don't know what the case is, but I'm glad. Well, I'm not glad that the that the drive was more unpleasant than the game, but the game, I think, for most Carolina fans was pretty horrendously unpleasant. It was a wire-to-wire loss. After South Carolina didn't trail for 117-plus minutes in SEC play, they then subsequently trailed for 40 minutes in a game that I think we both agreed was winnable, that Carolina, I don't want to say should have won, and didn't like desperately need to win, and we can talk about the implications exactly of the loss in just a second, but that was a winnable game for Carolina. It would have allowed them to stay sort of on the front foot and kind of ahead of schedule. And I think you and I described it last week as really being in control of your own destiny, obviously not for like winning the SEC necessarily or making the NCAA tournament, but for at least cinching that double bye in the SEC tournament, which is valuable. And now they're kind of back where they were before they upset Arkansas, where they have to claw and fight for every win now, and you can't really afford any more slip-ups down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, you have 9 regular season games left, and you're at 13 wins. You're going to probably need 7 to 8, with including the SEC tournament, to feel good about making a postseason. NIT, you probably need 6 wins for the NIT, but 7 wins or 8 wins to get to 20 to feel pretty good about where you stand for the NCAA tournament. And that means your margin for error is, almost razor thin, with 5 games left, 4 games left against net top 50 teams, quad 1 teams-ish.
The 2 Mississippi State, LSU, and
Alabama.
At Alabama, yeah.
Yeah, so you have 4. So this is not, it's doable, but getting a win against Ole Miss, it's not going to really impact the net rankings, but just in terms of win totals, you're South Carolina, and you need every win you can possibly get at this point in the season, and losing that didn't help your cause.
This is a little bit of a, not polarizing. I didn't quite know how to feel about this because, again, Carolina, they could have won this game, and that would have been great. And they probably ultimately needed to because they wanted to stay ahead of schedule. But as they entered this 5-game stretch of Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M, they needed to go 4-1 in those games. And they still very well could.
Right.
They beat Arkansas, which put them ahead of schedule. Losing to Ole Miss, it's on the road, so it hurts you less than losing at home. You still have a winnable game coming up against Texas A&M that we'll talk about in probably half an hour or so here. And obviously they got it done against Missouri. And then you have Georgia. It's, Georgia played a close game with Florida the other day. We've said it a couple times this year, and we're going to say it when we get to the preview of the Georgia game, I guess next week, as Anthony Edwards goes, so go Georgia. They were,
which is a little more scary, considering now that Justin Minaya is out.
But, right. Which is a huge part of all of this. Like for South Carolina, it's not just the loss. It's if they had lost this game and Justin Minaya had missed it, but then ultimately he was coming back, you're like, okay, cool. Well,
kind of like Auburn with Keyshawn Bryant and Trey Hannibal.
Right. You accept, okay, that's an easy game to lose. There's kind of a malaise over the team. You're disappointed. You're losing your glue guy, but he's coming back. It's going to be fine. You're going to be able to get back. You're going to be able to return to form, the form that allowed you to upset Kentucky and to upset Arkansas and to, absolutely blow the doors off of Vanderbilt and Missouri like you should have. But now you're having to fight the uphill battle of having lost this game. Like you said, basically having no margin for error down the stretch and having to do it without not your best player, but I think we saw after the Ole Miss game that it's probably not an exaggeration to say that Justin Minaya is the single most important player on this Carolina basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, especially defensively. You saw it going into the Ole Miss game. I kind of figured it was going to be a matchup problem just because South Carolina's had problems at times with on-ball defense and guards that are, drive first, they can hit shots, and Breon Tyree's good at that. And you saw that. He went for, 38 points?
38 on 12 of 21 shooting.
Yeah.
Got to the line 13 times, knocked down 11 of his free throws.
And Devontae Shuler, they did a great job. We noticed that Cousinard started on Tyree and then switched to Shuler, and Shuler didn't score again. So that's great. You limit Devontae Shuler a little bit, but South Carolina doesn't have anybody that can match up on Tyree. And that was the problem. And whoever you put on there, you could put AJ on there, but he struggled at times defensively. Trey Hannibal's a freshman going up against what I believe to be either a junior or senior guard in Breon Tyree who's done this before. And then Cousinard can only do so much. And trust me, he tried. He tried to do everything, and that's just not a formula for success, and you're having to put – when your on-ball defense isn't great and, whoever – and Tyree's getting into the paint, you're having to rely on help defense from Jalen and Wildens, who have – habits of making silly fouls at times, have shown really good progress, but are still freshmen. Minaya helps in that. He's a great help defender. And when you don't have him out there, it causes fouls. It causes open shots in the lane. And you saw that. Ole Miss kind of went inside at will, especially on the side Mike Kosar wasn't on.
Minaya's kind of an eraser, and not because he's necessarily swatting like 4 or 5 shots a game. It's because, as we have both talked about before, and as I mentioned, I think just in the last podcast, the stuff that he can do just to disrupt the timing of opposing offenses, getting arms in passing lanes, even if he's not blocking shots, just contesting shots, making it tough for guys around the rim. That's the stuff that you really felt like Carolina was lacking. Because you mentioned, Cousinard, he did what he could, and I think it's fair to say I got a little bit sucked in by some of those really good defensive numbers for Carolina. Since the start of SEC play, I think you said basically top 5 in every major defensive category.
They were really, really good.
Carolina. It looked like, just based on the eye test, that the defense, especially in the backcourt, had gotten a little bit better. Cousinard, I think, has improved that. I thought with an increased role for Trey Hannibal, I think even what I said last podcast, I'd have to go back and listen exactly, but I think what I said was basically, you now have 3 guys that you can throw at these 2 guards. If AJ doesn't have it, or if Trey doesn't have it, or if Jermaine doesn't have it, you feel pretty good about at least 1.5 of those guys. And for Carolina, it was really just Jermaine. Trey couldn't get it done. AJ couldn't get it done defensively, and that's why you end up with Breon Tyree going for 38. And when someone goes for 38 at home, and it's Morgan Freeman night, you're not going to win.
They literally had someone who played God on their side. I mean, yeah. Like, that's just – it's one of those where it was kind of the perfect storm for South Carolina. You're playing so well. You lose one of your players. You're trying to figure out that. I mean, you saw it even when Minaya went out last year. It took them a couple games to really kind of figure out, okay, this is what we are. They're going to have to rediscover a little bit of their identity with him out. And
you got to do it on the fly with now no margin for error.
Yeah, and you got to do that while still trying to make a push for a tournament. Mm-hmm. That's really hard. And it's going to be very interesting to watch. And when you have 2 guards like South Carolina will not face. It'll be very hard for South Carolina to face that good of a combo of guards in SEC play again. That's the good news. But you still have LSU. You still have 2 times Mississippi State. You still have Anthony Edwards on the schedule, and that presents some problems. So it'll be very interesting to see how South Carolina combats this. It's going to require Keyshawn Bryant to step up. which he did not do well against Ole Miss. A.J. Lawson's going to have to play better, just 2 of 10. So you're going to need more from guys, and they're going to need to figure out this identity quick because they didn't play with a lot of pace and a lot of real energy against Ole Miss.
No, and it was uncharacteristic stuff too.
Yeah.
Mike, who I mean, still had a good game and is having an amazing senior season. There were times, I can remember one time off the top of my head, I don't remember if there were others, but where he's defending off ball and he just loses his guy who gets an easy backdoor cut for a layup. I think that was like midway through the second half or something like that, as Ole Miss was, building that lead all the way up to, I think 18 was where it peaked for them. But it was that kind of stuff that doesn't really happen. Mike is an engaged defender. He's really good off the ball. He's not losing those guys on the backdoor cuts. I mean, that's something you would expect from Wildens or Jalen, someone that's a freshman that gets exposed like that. It was those kinds of things. It was not having, the scrappy mentality. Frank was talking about not having the energy going for loose balls and crashing the glass. Ole Miss was not a good rebounding team.
No.
Carolina is or was going into this game a good rebounding team, and Ole Miss won the rebounding battle by 10.
Yes.
10
and
rebounds.
South Carolina only had 8 offensive rebounds.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss had 13. So
what?
Yeah, like
that was not how I expected Ole Miss to win this game.
And Frank mentioned it. I didn't even get the question out, and he cut me off. And I was like, Frank, you guys got out rebounded by 10 as the lead in, and he goes, yeah, we were terrible. We got beat on. I mean, he just went on this. We got beat on backdoor cuts. Mm-hmm. We got beat. Anything they could get beaten on in terms of just effort plays, they got beaten on. And Frank said it. So that's something that's going to have to get fixed. Luckily for them, it's an easy fix. So yeah, it was just a weird game. It was just a really, really weird game.
And I texted you midway through the first half, and I was like, what's the crowd like there? Because just watching it on TV, it sounded kind of loud when Ole Miss was hitting shots and building leads, and you were like, not really.
Yeah. No. There was...
So it wasn't even... the
students were packed.
They go to Fayetteville and beat Arkansas, which is apparently the toughest place to play in the country, and then you go to Ole Miss, and it's not one of the toughest places to play, and not as good as Arkansas. And, you lose by 14. 84-70 was the final score, but... as I mentioned, Ole Miss was up by 18 with 8 minutes to go. That could have easily been a 25-point loss, and I would not have said that was an inaccurate representation of how the game went. No,
and I think I posted in our live thread, I was like, the energy just in the building wasn't there. And I was like, this is one of those games where South Carolina is going to have to create its own energy, create its own kind of buzz, and it just never happened for them. They never got like that uplifting... Wildens Levesque missed an alley-oop dunk on an inbounds pass. Keyshawn Bryant back rimmed a put-back dunk. So it's just one of these things where you're trying. You see them trying. They're not just sitting there going through the motions. They're trying to create these plays. It just didn't connect for some reason Wednesday, and you saw the result from it.
We talked about Manaya's impact not being on the floor, like the actual basketball. Did you get the sense... talking to the guys afterwards, I don't know how much you saw or got to hear from anybody beforehand when you got to Oxford, that there was sort of like a mental malaise, like were the guys just super bummed having heard about Justin?
They looked engaged, and I think they went through the entire week knowing probably going to play against Ole Miss.
Right. We knew that, but it wasn't until like right after the game, at least you were the first person I saw report it, so I don't know if you broke it, but when we saw that it was official that he was going to have surgery, that was happening. Actually, this morning, we're recording this Friday morning. He's, I think, in surgery right now.
Yeah.
Didn't see that officially until Wednesday afternoon, even if that was the conclusion. You assume the team would have found out before the rest of us found out. I don't know if that was right before the game. I don't know if that was Tuesday. I don't know if that was in the immediate aftermath of the game, and it just wasn't made official until Wednesday after the game or whatever. But you have to imagine when you lose a leader and a glue guy like that, that has a sort of a psychological impact on the team as well.
Yeah, I think that I checked with USC on Tuesday, and there was no update to Justin. And we didn't get an update, obviously. I was on the road to Oxford when we got it. And I think that they were still trying. I knew they knew that he wasn't going to play against Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. But I think they were still trying to figure out a way or see if there was a possibility of him coming back. And it was just one of those things where you can't play with whatever he had, torn ligament, dislocated this, sprained whatever, for 6 weeks on your shooting hand.
A significant boo-boo.
Yeah, a very significant boo-boo. An owie to end all owies.
Yeah.
So you just can't play with that. And they tried their best to see if they could do it, and it just couldn't happen. And I think that was there a mental kind of block. I think they were bummed about it, but I was on the court watching warm-ups, and they seemed engaged. They seemed into it. They actually shot the ball pretty well in warm-ups, which I don't know. It's like hitting home runs at batting practice,
Yeah.
Really didn't translate, but they were engaged. They looked lively. It was a good group, and they just didn't translate to the game. And I think that that's just because you have such a different identity with Justin on the floor that you didn't have the same identity without him even in the building.
I was going to say this till after we talked about the Ole Miss game, but since we're already down this rabbit hole, we're just going here now. When Frank Martin says immediately after the Missouri game that South Carolina just has this black cloud over it, the university that just craps on other sports teams when things are going well, we know Frank is dramatic. That's part of the reason that Frank is fun to cover.
Yes.
The team understands that. The team understands that relationship, and I'm sure he's dramatic with them in practice like he is in the games. A lot of people get offended when he stands on the sideline and yells at a kid and gets in his face. And it's a coaching technique for sure. The kids have a relationship with Frank. They understand that. I think most of them, the ones that stick around, not the ones that transfer, because I think they take it personally, but most of them know there's a little bit of performance to that. I think it's fair to say it's not personal. It's kind of how Frank rolls. It's kind of how he coaches. Yeah, he is dramatic.
Yeah, and it's so different off the court too.
But do you think it affects those guys when they hear Frank being so nihilistic on the podium? Because the way they're all looking at it, Carolina's playing great. They beat Kentucky. They win, 4 of 5 in conference. You go on the road, you beat Arkansas. You beat the crap out of Missouri, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. The team's feeling well. They're playing well. Offense is good. Defensive numbers are climbing. South Carolina's in the driver's seat to grab a 2 seed. You lose what I think now is probably your most important player in terms of realizing the ceiling of this team in Justin Minaya. And there's 2 ways you can approach it. And I don't know if either one is right or wrong. But Will Muschamp would say, next man up. So what, now what? Doesn't matter, got to absorb it. I don't necessarily think that's the right answer, because that's stupid. When you lose someone really good, you're not just going to plug in the guy that's... There's a reason that the guy behind him isn't starting.
Yeah, when you lose a fourth-year starter in Jake Bentley, you're not going to plug in Ryan Helinski and expect production to...
Right. So I don't think that's necessarily the right answer. But for Frank to get up there and basically say doom and gloom, he didn't say the season's over, obviously, but that's pretty much what it sounded like. It's like, oh, we were playing so great, and then now we had the rug pulled out from underneath us. What are we going to do? Do you feel like that impacts the team, or do they just kind of chalk that up as, Frank's being dramatic like he always is?
I think some of that has to do, and I don't know, I never got the doom and gloom vibe from him as much as he's just really heartbroken for a guy like Justin Minaya, who was playing so well, who was putting together a really, really good season, and if he continued, had a chance to make second or third team all conference, just how he was playing in SEC play. And so I think that it was more just heartbreak for him. We're not in practice. We don't know what the message has been to the team. Mike Kotsar was very adamant after the Ole Miss game. I need to pick my game up. I need to be better. Even with Justin in there, I would still need to be better. So this team understands where the slack has come with Justin out, and it's on the defensive rebounding glass, on the offensive rebounding glass. I think they scored 70 points without him. Mm-hmm. I think they can.
Yeah.
The offense.
And I want to get to that, because that's.
Yeah. I think the offense will be fine if he's not in there, and that's no disrespect to Justin, but the Gamecocks are deep offensively. You're going to miss him on the glass. You're going to miss him help side defense. You're going to miss him on that end of the court, and where that production comes from is still what I think Frank Martin and that coaching staff are figuring out Thursday, Friday, and then into Saturday for the game against the A&M.
Wildens is starting. You mentioned last podcast you expect this to be a by matchup basis in terms of who that fifth starter is. I imagine it'll like by default it would probably be Wildens. They have the flexibility to change it if they need to. That's not the end of the world. Wildens, he's not ready to be a 25-minute per game kind of guy. He's not really ready to be a starter, but he gives you some size. He gives you theoretical rim protection. He gives you like a little bit of juice rebounding. Obviously, the damning part of Justin not being there is Minaya gives you the size and the rebounding, and he can space the floor, which Wildens cannot really do. I mean, he can knock down that like little 15-foot elbow jump or whatever. It's fine, but it's not really like Justin Minaya, who is really finding his stroke lately. So
Williams is not going 5 for 9 from 3, which
right. Yeah,
Minaya has the capability to do.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So Carolina doesn't necessarily need Minaya to beat Texas A&M this weekend. Probably not to beat Georgia at least once, although he certainly would have been helpful against Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
They're not going to need him to beat Vanderbilt in the last game of the season unless Vanderbilt decides to score 99 again and Saban Lee goes for another, what was it, 35, 5, and 6? Something like that? Ridiculous. Oh, my gosh. 99
Good for him.
points.
Good for Vandy. Good for Vandy.
I know. What a way to end the longest conference losing streak in the history of Southeastern Conference basketball, to beat the number 1 undefeated team in the conference and to do it scoring the most points that any SEC team has scored in regulation this year.
Vandy.
That was cool.
Good for Vandy.
I wasn't. Yeah, I mean, not that I would have had any reason to be sad about it. I was going to say I wasn't even sad about it, but why would I be? That was cool.
awesome.
Good job.
Yeah.
I mean, the game was. It wasn't like they scored 99 and
held on,
waxed LSU. Well, I mean, they didn't hold on. They won by 9, but it was 52-47 at half.
Yeah.
The final score was 99 to 90 or 99 to 92, something like that.
Good for Vandy.
So LSU was right there.
Yeah.
If I had told you going into that batch of games on Wednesday night that LSU was going to score 90 on Vandy, you would have thought the final score was going to be 90-47.
Yeah.
LSU, not Vanderbilt.
Good for Vandy.
Giving up 90.
Saban Lee, good.
Yeah,
Good
it was
them.
good. So
They deserve it.
as long as Vanderbilt doesn't do that, South Carolina can win those games. Where you worry about it, obviously, there's 2 Mississippi State games that you mentioned. LSU, you feel like Anthony Edwards has at least one big game against Carolina because you got to face him twice. At Alabama. At this point, I probably shouldn't say this because we're like in the business of like selling people on the fact that we have compelling content to talk about for the next 9 games, month, whatever that is, a month and change.
6 weeks, yeah.
6 weeks, yeah. I kind of feel like that might be it for Carolina. I don't know if they can really withstand the Justin Minaya injury and still make this push and go 6-3 and then win a game or 2 in the tournament, or go 7-2 and win a game in the SEC tournament.
I think it's going the next. Trying to think of this. The next 3 games are going to be big in determining that. Because
A&M at Georgia
and then Tennessee.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The other one was Tennessee.
Yeah. So you have, and you got to play some good teams. Minaya was on Bowdoin, if I'm not mistaken, in that Tennessee game, and he went like 1-400 in that game. So, and then you obviously have Anthony Edwards and A&M. People forget Minaya had 16, 19 points against A&M the first time out there.
Now.
Yeah, and so I think he can match that scoring production, but Minaya was a big piece of why they won that game.
He played 40 minutes, shot 6 of 11, 4 of 8 from 3, made both of his free throws, finished with 18-8, 5 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks.
Yeah, that was
okay.
That was the ultimate glue guy performance from him.
And then against Tennessee,
he had a weird game against Tennessee.
But Bowdoin shot 1 of 17 from the floor. I don't even know if I remember seeing that at the time. 1 of 17 and 1 of 12 from 3.
Yeah. So, Minaya, you're going to know a lot about this team and where it stands over the next 3 games because you can afford a loss here or there. You got Georgia on the road, obviously, but it's one of those where the identity of this team's got to kind of form and mold quick because you have some big games coming up over your last 9. This would be a lot different if this happened in early January where you had 16 games left to kind of blaze your own path. But now it's a little bit different.
Because he had spent the last 2 or 3 weeks, but like the early part of the season, Minaya was fine. He obviously started the season with a bang with 17-11 against North Alabama or whatever it was, and then didn't really find his stroke again until a couple games into SEC play. If he had gotten hurt after the Florida game, I think it would have been easier for this team to absorb it, but he started playing better. The team started leaning on him a little bit more, and now, I mean, I know I just said Frank said this and maybe shouldn't have, but now the team really has had the rug pulled out from underneath him because as soon as he started playing well, as soon as the team started leaning on him, and as soon as he started, I guess, maximizing his role as the glue guy and elevating everyone around him, that's when he gets injured, and it's like, eh.
Yeah. In the weirdest way possible. Like, he landed on a guy. Like, he came down and just landed on some dude, like he braced himself. That's how these injuries happen is you fall and you brace yourself on something.
You know where those oven mitts they wear in baseball now?
Yeah, and so, shoot with oven mitts.
Yeah.
It's weird, and Frank's right. Like, think of all these injuries that they've had to have and overcome just within the last, 2 years, 3 years. Sindarius gets sick during the Final Four run, gets suspended earlier in the season, but gets sick during the Final Four. And a lot of South Carolina revisionist history, fans love to speculate, well,
what if he hadn't had the flu?
What if he hadn't had the flu?
Or what if he had his own flu game? He played pretty well in that game anyway.
Yeah, but what happens if Sindarius is 100% for that game? And, does South Carolina beat Gonzaga if they do that? Then the next year, Alonzo Frink misses the first, 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season with that injury. TJ Moss goes out. Justin Minaya obviously gets hurt. And then Jason Cudd, that is big of a deal, who obviously transferred, gets hurt and misses the back half of the entire season.
Bryant missing the only part of this season. Bryant now missing every other game.
Yeah, with
pretty much
a knee or a head, or Trey Hannibal getting hurt. It's been amazing. And go back even further with PJ Dozier's back and Ty Johnson's foot. And I think Sindarius has banged up his sophomore year. So all of these things to say, South Carolina's been really, really unlucky with injuries. And I know that's not an excuse, because you're supposed to build depth, and that's why you have 13 scholarships. But when these injuries, you can shoulder 1 or 2 injuries to guys that don't play a lot every year. But when it's constantly a Keyshawn Bryant or Justin Minaya or TJ Moss, who was starting last year when he got hurt.
Yeah, if Mike Green had sprained his thumb, it would not be the end of the road for South Carolina. No disrespect to Mike Green, who hit that huge 3 at the end of the Missouri game. But
he's not playing 40 minutes, 35 minutes a game like Justin Minaya is.
The reality is South Carolina is not as talented. They're as talented or not as talented as most of the teams that they play in the SEC. There's only a handful of teams that they are just straight up better than. So where did they win the margins in those games? Where have they won the margins in those games? Against Arkansas, against Kentucky? It's with the depth.
Yes.
You lose the depth, and now you're playing the same number of guys. You don't have as many options, and you're just a little bit less talented.
Yeah.
So that's,
and the SEC is so wide open. Yeah, and the
Right.
SEC is so wide open that you're going up, like you said, against teams that are as good as you, that you, on any given night, you can beat that team, like in Arkansas. Any given night, they play 10 times. South Carolina wins probably 4, 5, or 6 of them. It's going to be very even. They either go 4-6, 5-5, or 6-4. Just one of those where, they could split every home and home with the team this year, just because every team is just the same level of good.
Vanderbilt just beat LSU.
Yeah. So we can obviously assume the Vanderbilt's better than LSU. But to lose a guy like Justin Minaya, who gives you just look at the small forwards in the SEC or the power forwards, the 3 or the 4, wherever he was playing. He's, marginally better than most. Marginally to significantly better than most. And to lose that means you have to put a freshman in there who's playing against guys that are 2 or 3 years into the program, and your marginal efficiencies there go down, to use, weird economic kind of comparisons to this.
I love it.
Yeah, you lose.
Bring econ into it.
Yeah, you lose your marginal, victories there. And that's not an econ term. But that's my thing. But you lose your margins there.
Collyn Taylor, economist.
Yeah, economist. My brother is an econ major, though.
Is he?
Yeah. So
yeah, I wish I had been. It seems like it would have been really valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, But to lose that, you lose a big piece of why you've won. You lose a big piece of why you beat Kentucky and why you beat Arkansas.
Do you remember what Sindarius Thornwell stat line was against Gonzaga?
Scored in double digits. 21 points.
Not quite. So, yeah, I remembered him having a good game, and I think he did, especially all things considered. He finished with 15-5, a couple of assists, a steal, 2 blocks. Not bad. But he played 37 minutes, which was a team high. The other thing that I forgot, and maybe because he had I don't know, I guess he had a decent game elsewhere. Chris Silva finished with 13 points, but shot 3 of 12 from the field. Made 7 of his 9 free throws, but he also collected 13 rebounds, which was nice. Added 3 blocks as well.
And he punched that dude in the face by accident.
That's right. I had actually forgotten about that.
Yeah.
So, and I knew that Nigel Williams-Goss had killed Carolina. He shot 9 of 16, scored 23. But my lasting memory of that game, and sorry to go off on this tangent now, but I pulled up the box score because
I think fans would always like going off on these tangents.
Yeah,
it's like that 2010-2011 World Series
right.
teams. They love going off on
because I just said, yeah, but Sindarius still had a good game, even though he had the flu. And then I was like, did he? I remember him kind of fighting, but I don't remember how well he actually played. He shot 4 of 12, so not super efficient. 2 of 6 from 3, 5 of 6 from the free throw line. My lasting memory from that game was Zach Collins just eviscerating Carolina. And so I was looking at his stats, and it wasn't as flashy as I remember. He scored just 14 points, but he did it pretty efficiently. 6 of 10 from the field, and he also grabbed 13 rebounds. But that's more than anything else. I remember being terrified of Shimek Karnowski coming into the game, and he was fine, 13 and 5, but it was Zach Collins coming off the bench, and obviously he's the guy that's in the NBA now, not Karnowski.
Yeah.
And I remember there just being a lot of fun media talk, a lot of fun content around Shimek Karnowski, people trying to pronounce his name and things like that. Do you want to take a guess how you spell Shimek? Or see if you remember, I guess, because I'm sure you wrote it many times.
I did not see. I wasn't covering the basketball team at the time of the Final Four.
Oh, were you still in college?
Yeah, that was my senior year.
Okay, all right.
So
all
I was still with Gamecock Central, but I was doing a lot. I was.
Well, you get a pass, but do you want to take a guess with the first letter of Shimek?
C.
No.
P.
Yes. There's no C.
Okay.
P-R-Z-E-M-E-K.
Okay. Yeah, I watched that Final Four game from Village Idiot.
Oh yeah,
in the Olympia Village Idiot. So
that one. Okay.
Yeah,
that was like brand new then.
Yeah,
right? Is that
that was the only place we could find to like actually sit, like have a spot to sit and watch it.
That went in. I was living at the Orchard, which is right by there, right on Virginia Street. Like the year that they built it, and I feel like that's when that Village Idiot went in, or maybe it was my senior year of college. I think it was my first year out, something like that. I watched the game at my parents' house.
Yeah,
that was probably the only basketball game that my mom and dad and maybe my brother watched that year. College basketball game, anyway.
Yeah, we I have a lot of weird memories from that run because I was covering baseball at the time. So I was covering, like, I was in Tennessee for the Marquette game. So like we watched the Marquette game in the press box in the Tennessee, and then
how'd the Tennessee game go? Do you remember?
Clark Schmidt didn't pitch. Adam Hill threw on Friday. They swept. Adam Hill was. I think was the
basketball game Friday, Saturday, or Sunday?
It was Friday, Saturday. It was Friday, Sunday. Because I was driving back from Tennessee.
No, but you're talking the basketball game though was Friday.
Friday night.
So what do you remember from the Friday night game?
Adam Hill threw.
Okay, so you do remember. I was wondering if it was one of those things where you were there, you were covering it, but you just remember the basketball game.
There are plenty of baseball games that I've covered that I forget immediately after I leave the ballpark. I write my story and I'm like, send, done, forget about it.
Out of my brain.
Yeah, it's a lot of those midweek games that are like 40 degrees.
But you actually remember the Friday game. I'm impressed.
Adam Hill threw and they won, and that entire series. I remember the Sunday game too, even though that was prime time. The Duke game was, but they were tied or something. It was close in like the sixth, and they like sent 12 batters to the plate in like the sixth inning.
Oh wow!
Dominated, and then Colby Lee came in and Ian just dominated, and they won. They swept.
Wow.
Fun facts.
There you go. Going back in the memory.
The 2017 Tennessee baseball series.
I feel bad that we've brought up the Final Four run because as optimistic as Carolina fans were before Ole Miss and before Justin Minaya went down, that this team could get to the tournament, and then this year in college basketball is so weird. I haven't even like really enjoyed it. And sports are like this, and college basketball is like this more than most sports. And this college basketball season is like this more than most college basketball seasons, where it's like the team that wins at the end, the best team in the country, will just end up being the team that has the fewest stinkers.
Bold of you to assume that there is a best team in college basketball.
There won't be. There will not be this year. It won't be the best team. It'll just be the team that sucks the least.
Yeah.
Or the least often.
Yes. And I mean, my roommates and I are huge college basketball fans. So we'll sit there and watch on like a Monday night, Tuesday night, or whatever, and be like, "Who the hell's good?" Because we don't know. Like we'll sit there, we're like, we think Kansas is good, we think X is good.
Baylor's probably good.
Baylor's good, I think.
I guess, but I don't know.
Who knows?
It's a weird year.
It's a weird year.
Which means Carolina could probably still be in the mix. Some things really have to go their way. We didn't even really talk about this Ole Miss game. Let's hit a couple bright spots because there were two big positive takeaways from this Ole Miss game, and Carolina's going to need a lot more of this if you're looking to replace what Justin Minaya does all around. We'll start with Jermaine Couisnard.
Cousy.
8 of 18, 3 of 9 from 3, 9 of 13 from the free throw line. South Carolina in general shot the free throw very, very well. I mentioned this on my local show yesterday. I can't remember if it was during your hit or if this was before or after, but it seems like Carolina wastes all their good free throw shooting performances because other than the first A&M game, in which they shot 7 of 8, which I don't count as a good free throw shooting.
You only shot 8
night.
free throws.
Yeah, you only shoot 8 free throws. I mean, by percentage, yes, it's great, but the Florida game and the Ole Miss game, I feel like are Carolina's two best free throw shooting games in conference play, and they lost both of those games by double digits.
Yeah.
What a waste.
Yeah.
Shoot him in the games that are close.
Jermaine Couisnard shot 8 more free throws than the next highest guy to shoot free throws. Jermaine Couisnard accounted for 13 of the team's 23 free throws.
There you go. I mean, good job, him. Hats off.
Shout out Kuzi, because that is...
Not Bob, though, Jermaine.
No. My roommates call him Kuzi, so I've adopted it.
I like it.
8 of 18, 3 of 9 from 3. Needs to be better there. Probably make 4 or 9. You feel pretty good about that.
Mm-hmm.
28 points, 3 assists, 2 turnovers, 1-1, 1 steal, played 38 minutes, was the only guy to put up a fight on Breein Tyree and Devontae Shuler, was the only guy that had any interest in driving the ball. Those are words from Frank Martin.
Mm-hmm.
I am not criticizing anything. Frank Martin said Jermaine was the only guy that really wanted to get to the rim, and it showed.
And he did it by and large.
Yeah, and did it and converted, and I'm looking, Mike Kotsar shot 5 free throws. So that your
and
two
made
best,
all 5 of them. What
Mike,
the heck?
Yeah, Kotsar.
Kotsar.
So when
how's that shirt coming?
I haven't seen it yet. I really need to.
All right, y'all get on that.
Yeah, it's made. There's one made. But when Mike Kotsar and Jermaine Couisnard combined for 14 of your 18 makes, and then 18 of your 23 free throws, kind of shows you where the team was.
Mm-hmm.
Wilden Zavek made two of his. And Keyshawn Bryant made 2 of his. But A.J. Lawson, T.J. Moss, and Trey Hannibal combined to shoot 1 free throw. And
make 0.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Jair Bolden didn't have any free throws. Lonzo Frank didn't have any free throws. Yep. Well, he just played 1 minute, actually. He's got a lot of 1 minute performances.
Well, he came in, made a dumb foul, then turned the ball over, not going for a loose ball, and didn't play again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of those.
Not a great night for Lonzo. Weird sophomore year for him. Not a great sophomore year. Has probably more to do with Wildens and Jalen than him, maybe, although I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
The point is, Jermaine Couisnard, Kuzi, had a really nice game. Career high, right? 20. Oh, no, wait. How many did he score against Kentucky? He scored 26 against Kentucky.
Yeah, it might be career high.
Yeah, career high, 28 points. He's going to need to do that. AJ's going to have to play better than he did, and we'll talk about AJ in a second, but I wanted to touch on the other great performance, which you mentioned, Mike Kotsar. 5 of 5 from the free throw line, 7 of 11 from the field. Another efficient scoring night for Mike. 19 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. We said 5x5 or triple-double. This was close to the 5x5. We can say it was close, right? 1 assist, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. That's close?
Close enough.
That's
for
really
Mike,
close.
Yeah, close enough.
That's really good. 19, 8, 4, 3, and 3. That's a Draymond Green stat line.
Yeah. Mike's pushing, and I hate to do the whole, overreact after one game or whatever, but, when you look at the SEC this year, Mike Coates was probably a top 5 big man in it.
He's been awesome.
Shout out to Mike.
I mean, no question about it.
And played how many minutes? A lot?
38 minutes.
38 minutes.
He and Jermaine both played 38 minutes.
Yeah.
Here's something else interesting that I did not notice. I'm looking at the box score right now. I didn't notice this until just now. Mike Kotsar had the only 2 offensive rebounds for South Carolina. And you go back in your head and you're like, but they had 8. I guess that was 6 team offensive rebounds where it's just Ole Miss knocking it out of bounds after a shot. And Mike Kotsar had the only 2 offensive rebounds in the whole freaking game for South Carolina.
Good for Mike.
Yeah, good for Mike. But again, Ole Miss was not
a good rebounding team. You need to be better at that. Yeah.
Yikes. A couple other yikes. AJ Lawson, 26 minutes, 2 of 10, 1 of 6 from 3, just 5 points, 2 rebounds, no assists, but
1 turnover.
1 turnover. This is 4 games in a row that he's had 1 or 0 turnovers, which is really nice. The shot's been falling for him lately. It wasn't falling on Wednesday. This is when I think Frank Martin would like to see him go to the rim more, because when three's not falling for you, like I said, you're 1 of 6. Yeah. I think he hit his 3rd or his 4th one. It was actually kind of a big shot when he hit it, if I remember correctly.
Okay, because I think that brought it to within 10 or 8
or
whatever.
Yeah, I think it maybe got it to single digits. It was 12 to 9 or something like that. It was a big shot when he hit it, but he just got to be more aggressive. And I don't know. It was there at times. It wasn't there consistently throughout the game. He only played 26 minutes. We've talked about how much of a, I guess, positive or negative indicator that is in terms of how well Frank Martin thinks a guy is playing based on how many minutes he gets. Just wasn't there for AJ. You hate to think that he's going to be a guy, but it's been the story of his sophomore year. You hope that he figures this out before his junior year, because let's be honest, he's not going to the NBA after this year, and if he does, he's not going to get drafted. He's going
to have one hell of a 9-game stretch.
Yeah, he'd have to average 25 and 8 in the last couple games, and even still, I'm not sure. It might just be a G League contract for him at this point. But when he comes back his junior year, He can't be a guy. If he's going to be the leader of this team, which maybe he doesn't need to be. I mean, Jermaine's been consistently better than him through all of SEC play. Obviously, Mike's not going to be back next year, but if he's going to be a consistent, like significant contributor on this team, significant piece, he's going to have to stop being a guy that plays well when his shot is falling and then disappears when it's not.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about Jermaine. Even when his shot's not falling from the outside, he's at least mostly getting to the free throw line. He's attacking the basket. Even if he can't finish, he is trying to make things happen. And if AJ's shot's not falling, he'll just check out.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. When AJ's aggressive, his game usually follows. And that's the problem right now is when he's not aggressive and his energy level is not to the point it needs to be that comes with being aggressive, his shot doesn't fall. And then defensively, it lacks a little bit. So he needs to just get back to what he was doing, having fun. It's one of those things where I think if the moment gets big, he kind of gets a little into himself and kind of shies away from it, and that just can't happen. He needs to be fun-loving AJ all the time.
Right.
And when he's doing that, he's good.
Mm-hmm.
So if he does that, you feel good about where AJ is, but he just wasn't that against Ole Miss.
When he does that, he's a legitimate NBA prospect that he was towards the end of last season. He's not that right now. Now, there's, I don't know, I guess when Carolina's at home, you have like the defense and you have Sandstorm and, a couple other things. This is like super high school, but I feel like the student section needs to bring back, just for AJ, be aggressive. Be aggressive. You never hear that in college venues. I've never heard that at the Colonial Life Arena. Maybe AJ needs to hear that.
I think the last time someone did that was like 1965 or something like that.
Probably.
That feels like one of those, like, Remember the Titans cheers. Like,
that's true. But they might need to bring it back because AJ might need to hear that.
Yeah.
So
just I'm sure Frank's reminded him a couple times over the course of games to be aggressive.
Yeah. Although Frank probably doesn't remind him in a way that's like as pleasant and sing-songy as that. Although I would love to see Frank singing that from his chair at the end of the bench.
Well, then we'd have fans getting mad because he's clapping on the sidelines.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this and you're going to the Texas A&M game,
chant be aggressive.
Yeah, try to get that started. And if it gets started, subsequently tweet at me. Obviously, we will be there to verify whether or not that chant happens.
Yeah.
And if it does, and you think that you were responsible for starting it, let us know.
We'll have you on the podcast.
Yeah, we'll have you on the podcast. We'll get you to tell the story about how exactly
we'll come on and we'll interview you about
and
it.
how that felt.
And you can curse and say whatever you want to.
Yeah.
And we'll ask
Wes
you about the
right
team.
Yeah. I've never started a chant. I mean, I guess not at Williams-Brice or Colonial Life Arena. I was actually most school spirit. I did like all the, like school spirit, like student body, leading the stuff in high school. So I guess I started some of those. But
Were you the mascot?
No, I wasn't the mascot. I was just like, paint my face guy. But I've always thought it would be cool to start a chant. So this is a challenge. If you can do it, not only, thanks for doing it and hopefully it helping and for listening to this podcast and giving us that kind of positive feedback, but also I would just be super impressed because it's hard to do in a big arena like that.
Don't you think Gamecock Jesus would want to get that started?
Yeah. Do you think he listens to this?
Gamecock Jesus, if you're listening, start it and then we'll have
you
on the podcast.
Be aggressive.
Then we'll have you on the podcast.
Be aggressive,
Yeah.
AJ. Be aggressive.
Oh,
direct it right at AJ.
Specifically to him.
Yeah.
Throw his name in there as well.
Someone else that probably could stand to be a little more aggressive. How about just a little better? My roommates and I were talking about this last night. You and I talked about it a little bit in the last podcast. Keyshawn Bryant's just not having a good year. He's having a worse year than AJ, but he's like a slightly lower profile player, so it hasn't had as much attention, and he's had some injuries. Just 21 minutes, 8 points, 3 of 6, 3 rebounds, 4 turnovers.
He needs to be better.
Keyshawn
Needs to be better.
WYD.
Especially when he's going to be relied on a lot more now with Mania out indefinitely. So you just need to be more aggressive. He tried to put the ball on the deck a little too much and got stripped. And I mean, bottom line, just needs to be better. I think he's in attack mode all the time and can get reckless in that mode. But when he's just facilitating and throwing great passes and letting the game come to him, he's really good. He's been really good this year. So you need to see more of that Keyshawn Bryant and less of like, I'm just going to lower my head and see how many people I can put on bodies and posters.
I'm almost positive Keyshawn listens to this podcast, and he must have heard you saying last time that with Mania out, it's got to be Bryant to step up, and he pushed too much, and he just wasn't good. But Keyshawn, it's not all on you, buddy. You have teammates. Just need to do the best job you can do in your role for the team. You need to be 14-4 with really good defense.
And like 3 assists to like 1 turnover.
And not 4 turnovers.
Yeah.
When you're not a primary ball handler, you should not turn the ball over 4 times in 21 minutes.
Keyshawn, if you are also listening to this, please hit a 3. That way I can tweet 3 Sean Bryant.
Keyshawn, if you're listening to this,
I need the retweets and I need the clicks.
Keyshawn, if you're listening to this, please don't attempt any more threes. How many has he hit this year? Do we know offhand?
I know at least 1.
He's hit at least 1?
He hit 1 against Virginia.
All right, I'm looking at his numbers right now. I love when we do this.
Great radio, great podcast.
I know, right? People love listening to me click around and do research.
I'm scrolling.
Season totals, 1 of 15.
That came against Virginia.
Good job. That was really
like
important.
It was like really nonchalant too. Like he nailed it, like in like the end of a shot clock, and we're like, holy hell! Like Keyshawn just did that.
Man, 6.7%. They did win that game, and Keyshawn's 3.
That was there.
That was important. It mattered, I guess. It was points. 1 of 15, and you know what? He definitely doesn't have a pretty shot.
I just want to tweet 3 Sean Bryant. Like okay. I've had like that's the only reason.
Just tweet it whenever he hoists one, which is fewer than once a game for him, which is good. Keyshawn, you don't need to shoot those. 3 of 6 is fine. You made both your free throws. Good job. Just don't turn it over. Just play more within yourself. Carolina needs more from you. He
probably needs to shoot more, I would think.
Yeah. He should probably have about 10 to 12 shot attempts a game.
They weren't aggressive in taking good shots. You know, they kind of passed up good shots to try to get a better shot, and it didn't work.
Nothing much doing from the bench for Carolina. 8 points, 5 from Hannibal on 2 of 3 shooting. He didn't have an assist, had 1 turnover, 3 fouls.
A couple bad fouls, too.
And honestly, bad shoes.
I didn't, like actual shoes?
Yeah.
I didn't see them.
Oh, how did you miss them? There were those like pink Pepto-Bismol shoes.
I'm not going to knock Trey for his shoes.
No,
Trey's got a new hairstyle every time I see him.
Yeah, too, I mean, like, so. I support varied and aggressive and just like in general risk taking in your shoe game, even if it doesn't work. I'm very unaggressive in my shoe game.
Are
unaggressive?
Yeah.
What are you wearing right now?
I got like these like brown boots on.
I got brown boots on. What kind of boots? Mine are Clarks.
Great radio. Mine are Clarks.
Oh, cool.
Hey.
So I've seen those. We have very different like style of Clarks. We're both wearing brown boots.
Yeah. Because everyone could see this.
Yeah,
I'm also wearing
this is terrible.
Purple and yellow taco socks, but that's neither here nor there.
I'm wearing like kind of Argyle looking socks. Point is,
lamer.
Again, I'm fine with it with risk taking in the shoe game. It was just not a great pink. It looked like either Pepto-Bismol or what's it called, amoxicillin. Is that the pink stuff that I used to take a lot as a kid? Not great. I don't know if that was a contributing factor. I mean, he scored most of Carolina's bench points, so I won't knock him too much. And he did play 18 minutes, which is the second most of anybody off the bench. Jared Bolden did nothing. 0 of 2 from the field. He did have, I guess, 3 assists, but was just really low impact when he was out there. TJ Moss played 20 minutes. He had 5 assists, which was nice for him. Just 1 turnover. So
good
for that margin, it's always 1-to-1 for TJ.
Yes.
He was 1 of 3. He hit a 3 again. He continues to actually shoot the 3-ball really well. But then there was one time. Was Carolina going left or you were there, so you don't remember. Whenever Carolina was going left or right, I don't remember if that was first half or second half. But there was one time when TJ got the ball wide open in the corner. He's been shooting the 3. He's been shooting it reasonably well. He's got the short side 3. He takes a dribble in to like 18 feet or 17 feet. I don't know actually how far the corner 3 is, but he takes a big dribble in. He takes like a mid-range baseline jumper and basically hits the bottom of the net and nothing else. Like it was. Yeah, I remember that. I don't know if it was actually an air ball or if it grazed like the front of the rim. But I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Not pretty. But 20 minutes, 5 assists, added a couple rebounds, 1 turnover.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of shrugs. He's just underwhelming. He's just a very low impact player.
It was a very forgettable performance from the bench.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fair to say.
From almost everybody, except for Jermaine and Mike. And even Mike, like I was surprised to see after the game that he had 19-8, 4, 3, and 3. It was a quiet 19-8, 4, 3, and 3.
Which is what you want.
Yeah,
we talked about that with AJ. We were like, if he's putting up quiet numbers like that.
If AJ's 15, 6, and 3 or 15, 5, and 4 every game and you don't notice him, that's fine. That's probably best case scenario for this team. So it's not bad to say that Mike had a quiet night. The only memorable performance was Jermaine.
And when you're not getting great production from Keyshawn or AJ or whoever, you're going to need your bench to step up. That's why you have the depth. That's why you have a Trey Hannibal, a Jair Bolden, a TJ Moss. and Alonzo Frank, if you're not getting the great minutes from Wildens or Jalen, you need that. And for them to combine for 5 points, 8 points on, 3 of 8 shooting, decent shooting night, but take more shots, be more aggressive, and that's what you want to see from your bench when they come in the game.
Carolina scored 70 points on the road. I know Ole Miss it's probably fair to say they're better than their record, but it was still a team that was 10-11, 1-7 in conference. It was a game that South Carolina absolutely could have won. They didn't need to have the best game they've played all season to win this game.
No.
And you score 70 points on the road, which is, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, 70 points on the road in the SEC should absolutely be enough to be competitive and be in a game down the stretch.
Yeah.
And it was never close.
Yeah, you would feel good. If you would come to me and say South Carolina scored 70 against Ole Miss, I would say the score would probably be 70-61, 70, within about 10 points.
Yeah, like maybe Ole Miss wins at 74-70, or maybe Carolina wins at 70-66. But you would have thought it was 8-5, and then what was it, 11-10? And then I don't know if it didn't get that close again. Carolina obviously never led. I don't think it was tied.
And then in the second half, I think it got down to 8.
Yeah.
And then Ole Miss went on like a 6-0 run.
Yeah, I think Jermaine hit a 3 that cut it to 8 maybe.
Yeah. And you felt like crowd got quiet. The people that were there, you kind of felt South Carolina.
You're like, cool, this happens a lot for Carolina in the second half.
I think they got like an offensive foul on the very next possession. They drew an offensive foul, so they got the ball back and then just couldn't do anything with it. And I wrote about it where it's like, you had your chances. What South Carolina did has done to other teams this year in terms of just limiting their runs, Ole Miss did that to them. So it's just one of those. It's just one of those where they didn't play well and they had chances, they just couldn't capitalize, and Ole Miss took advantage of that at home.
So if you want to be favorable in your projection of the next 9 games for South Carolina, you can say the offense had we'll say not bad, but slightly subpar game. Carolina, since entering SEC play, is shooting about 45% from the floor.
Yeah, they were the best. I think they were the best effective field goal percentage team in SEC play.
Because the 3-point shooting has really experienced an uptick. They shot below average numbers, a little over 41%, 30% from 3, which is 6 of 20 feels about like where they can live. 6 of 18 or like 7 of 19 is probably a little more accurate.
Looking at the box score, I was like, man, this wasn't a bad three-point shooting night for them.
No, I mean, it wasn't. It was just like slightly below average in all categories, and that was with AJ having a bad night, with Keyshawn having a bad night, and basically getting nothing from your bench. So you actually, in a weird way, probably feel okay about your offense. And like I said, this is if you want to have a positive projection of South Carolina's next 9 games, the defense that was so good through the first 9 games of SEC play, through the first 8 games of SEC play, with the exception of Auburn, who's really good, and Andrew Nembhard. I wouldn't even say Florida. I would just say Andrew Nembhard. With those exceptions, you feel like the defense can probably get back close to that. They're not going to be top 5, top 3 in most defensive categories without Justin Minaya. Yep. But if they're league average and the offense continues to be slightly above average, and Jermaine's giving you, I mean, he's scored like 17 a night in SEC play, and AJ gets back to more than 5 points, even if he's not great AJ, even if he's scoring 13 points. Like the offense being slightly above average and the defense taking a little bit of a step back in Justin's absence, but not being as horrendous as it was on Wednesday, that you still feel like you have a chance to go 5-3 in the next, 6-3, 5-4, which puts you on the borderline in a situation where you can win a couple tournament games and make a case.
Yeah, and I think that you can make a case, and I think South Carolina is going to be in unless they really come out and lay eggs, they're going to be in every game. I think they're the kind of team that can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a matter of can they kind of get over the Minaya hump and have other guys step up to close games out. That requires AJ, that requires Mike, that requires somebody, or a Kusnard, to continue to step up and be the guy.
Now, if they, on Saturday, just shit the bed against Texas A&M.
Watch the language.
Yeah. That's going to be it. And A&M's been playing a little bit better.
But they're still, it would be might be a quad 4 loss since it's at home. They're like, the last net I did, I hadn't updated it yesterday because I was on the road. They were 139 and a quad 3-win at home, I think, goes 135 is the cutoff there. A loss to Texas A&M would not be good for South Carolina.
Now, Carolina already won on the road, and they did it shorthanded. Keyshawn missed basically that whole game. Trey missed that game. TJ missed that game. So that's a lot of. I mean,
you're coming back to full strength more so now,
right?
Even with Mania.
And you're at home. Weirdly, I think if you ask like a national or even regional college basketball writer, pundit, who's better between Carolina and A&M, they would all say Carolina without thinking about it. And ESPN's BPI kind of bears that out. It says Carolina has an 85% chance to win this game. Both teams are 5-4 in SEC play, which is super weird.
Yeah, South Carolina's 5-4 is a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot better.
Texas A&M's wins are Ole Miss
Missouri twice.
Missouri twice, Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, and at Tennessee.
Yeah.
So, I guess you look at that and you say, well, Tennessee beat Carolina in Knoxville, so that's like better, and obviously Ole Miss just beat Carolina pretty comfortably, and Texas A&M beat them. That was early in the season. I think that was the first or second game of SEC play for both of them.
But South Carolina has won every other. They've beaten Kentucky and Arkansas, 2 quad 1 teams, and have beaten every other team they've played. And the other teams they've beaten they've done it by double digits.
Right.
So
this is still a game that Carolina needs to win. Josh Nebo didn't have a great game last go round. Mike Kosar did a really good job with him defensively, and he frankly hasn't been great. He had decent games in those 2 wins against Missouri. I think he had like a 14-6 and a 15-8. So pretty good games, not outstanding. What's been the difference for Texas A&M the last couple games? They've gotten really good performances out of Wendell Mitchell. He scored 48 points in the last 3 games. He's not doing it super efficiently, but he's scoring a lot. And Carolina fans would not be. I wouldn't hold it against you if you see a guard that's scoring a lot and all of a sudden get really nervous.
Yeah.
But for Carolina, it's not 2 guys that have necessarily been going off. So you just hopefully stick Jermaine on Wendell Mitchell or whomever. And I guess you also hope that even if he does go for 30, Carolina should still have enough juice to win a game like this.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, they're the better team. It's going to be a rock fight. Prepare yourself. It is going to be a rock fight. These are 2 teams that are averaging below 100 points per possession in terms defensively, allowing less than 100 points per possession. South Carolina is still the number 1 defensive efficiency team in the SEC since conference play started. A&M is 3rd. So 2 good defenses coming at it. I do not think it'll be 81-67 like it was. It'll probably be a little bit more low scoring than that. So South Carolina is not going to hit 16 threes again.
Right.
So you're going to need to have production from you're going to need better production from the AJs. I don't know if Jermaine had a good game in that one. I can't remember.
Jermaine in that Texas A&M. Oh, did he? I guess he played in that because it was that
was the second start.
The Florida game. Yeah, that was his second start. And Jermaine had 17 points on 7 of 13 shooting, 3 of 8 from 3, played 37 minutes.
He had a great game.
2 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal. Woo! 8 turnovers.
Yeah, I remember that now.
That's right.
You're going to need that similar level of production from him, minus the 8 turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
Jair Bold went off for like 21 in that game. You're going to probably need some production from him. You're going to need to find ways to make up for Manaya's 18 points that he scored in that one.
Manaya scored 18 points. Carolina won by 14, so you're like, okay, cool. Carolina loses by 4 now. It's not exactly how that works, but the other thing you look at, like you said, Carolina's not going to shoot 16 of 30 from 3 again.
Yeah.
Carolina probably on average hits, 6 or 7 threes a game?
I would assume.
So I think I was 30 points off the board right there.
Yeah. So you're going to need to find ways to limit them offensively. Being at full strength will help. I think South Carolina wins this game. I don't know if it's a 25 or 26-point win like the Missouri or Vanderbilt games, but I think it'll be a rock fight that South Carolina wins.
Also worth pointing out, Carolina took 16 more shots than Texas A&M in that game.
Yeah, they
made a lot more threes, had a big game from Manaya, shot 29 of 60. Meanwhile, Texas A&M shot 18 of 44. Yeah. Carolina, they're a good rebounding team.
Good rebounding team.
But not against Ole Miss.
They need to be better in that.
How much is that a concern going forward? I imagine that Wildens will also be the starter in this game, that 5th starter sort of in the Manaya role.
Yeah.
I guess he'll be playing the 5 and Mike plays the 4 in that scenario.
Yeah, you're gonna need to crash the glass because Texas A&M I don't think is that great of an offensive shooting team. Crash the glass. Don't let Nebo get 10 rebounds or 14 rebounds, whatever it is.
Yeah, and Neo actually, I'm looking at it now. He had a fine game.
He had like a good rebounding game, if I remember.
Well,
No, he
actually,
only had like 2 rebounds.
Yeah, that was it. That was the thing that impressed me because Nebo was near the top of the SEC when Carolina played them in rebounding. I think he was second or third in the conference. He was averaging 9 or 10 rebounds a game. He did score 18 points, shot 6 of 10, 6 of 7 from the free throw line, but only had 2 rebounds. So I remember that being the notable kind of plus performance from Mike. And that was the game that Mike didn't also score a lot. He had 6 points, but he had 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals. I think that was when we first put him on triple-double watch.
Yeah. So
or maybe the Florida game. But
you're going to need to rebound the ball better. You're going to need more production from your bench, from guys like Jair and TJ and Trey Hannibal and AJ, who's not on the bench but a starter, and see where it goes from there.
Carolina obviously has to focus first and foremost on winning this basketball game.
Yes.
Can't afford to lose this game, or else that's pretty much it for you, unless something absolutely ridiculous happens, which you can never rule out. It's a ridiculous basketball season, and Carolina in general is a ridiculous basketball team.
Yes.
But while you have to win this thing, you also have to continue figuring out what to do, what's the answer, what's your rotation, whom can you rely on, or on whom can you rely, whatever. Shut up, people. Where is the extra productivity, huh?
With whomst.
Yeah, with whomst of.
Yeah.
You have to figure this out. And you have 3 games that you can afford to not play your best and still win in your next 3 games. And
then
that's
it gets a little tougher.
Yeah. And you have to have the Mania-sized hole figured out by then.
Yeah. You need to get your identity in order and figure out what team you want to be down the stretch. If you want to have any success against the Mississippi States and Alabamas and LSUs of the world.
I thought Carolina was going to beat Ole Miss. I thought they were going to be 6-3. I thought we would be sitting here, I guess, this time next week talking about Carolina being 8-3 in conference. Not necessarily the case, but I guess I just bring that up to say don't trust me. But I do expect Carolina to beat Texas A&M on Saturday.
I feel very comfortable with this one. I think it'll be close, but I think South Carolina's they're better.
That's a Chris Clark prediction. Whenever we do any sort of prediction, whatever, he always says, I think it'll be this, but I think it'll be close. It's like, yeah, that's why I asked you to predict like this slim margin.
Yeah, it's close. I think South Carolina wins.
It'll be close. Yeah. That would be
But
my
I don't
prediction.
think it'll be a 14-point game.
Probably not. But if Carolina shoots 16 of 30 from 3 again, that would be cool. So
yeah,
go to the game, be aggressive, AJ chant.
Stop by, see me.
Stop by and see Collyn. He always sits like right in the aisle. So if you're walking into, what is that, section 113?
Where the media sit, yeah. I'm on the front row.
Right. But you're always like on the inside, so I can fist bump you whenever our seats. Because my roommate has the like go pass thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like every time I've been with him, we've been in basically the same seats, but I feel like you get different seats every time. But I don't know if because he goes a lot, there's like a loyalty rewards thing where he gets to sit in kind of the same seat. I don't know exactly how that works.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, stop by and see Collyn and tell AJ to be aggressive. And hopefully, for everybody's sake, and most importantly for the sake of our content, we'll be talking about Carolina being 6-4 in conference, moving to 14-9 with a win over Texas A&M when we reconvene on Tuesday.
Yes.
So rate, review, subscribe to this podcast, read Collyn Taylor on GamecockCentral.com. Great previews before the game, great write-ups after the game. You basically do 3 write-ups after every game because you have your game story, which gets posted.
I don't do the game story. That's Wellbaum.
Oh, that's Wellbaum?
Shout out Chris Wellbaum.
Okay. All right. Wellbaum, who also does the game day updates.
Yeah.
But you have your instant analysis.
Yep.
And then you have the what we learned.
Yep.
So,
and then I usually do 1 or 2 stories off of it, too.
Right. And then a story here or there. And then obviously you have a couple different previews that you do.
We're not doing
what to expect.
Yeah. We're not doing a scouting the opponent for Texas A&M.
Because you've already done one.
We've already done
so
one.
go back and read the one from earlier this year, whatever that game was.
And then we'll do a keys. Numbers to know, keys to victory.
Yep, keys. There you go. So yeah, read Collyn Taylor. Follow him on Twitter at Collyn Taylor with a Y. I'm at Pearson Fowler. If for some reason you want to follow me, rate, review, subscribe to this podcast. Thank you all so much for listening, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Boom.